YouTube, what's going on? It's Juan Gotti here with another video, and in today's video, we're going to be talking about what rookies will be affected by no preseason game the most, whether that's late round picks or undrafted free agents. So without further ado, let's get straight into today's video. But before we do, make sure you guys go down below, leave a like on this video, subscribe if you're new, and turn on post notifications so you get notified when I upload a video about the NFL, or in this case, our Washington Football Club. And let's get straight into today's video. I know I said we were done with the Redskins intro, but since we're not going to be called the Redskins anymore, why not take a few moments to reminisce, because I know we're going to miss the name. So let's just reminisce, kick back, and enjoy these highlights. Hey you, you, the one that's about to watch this video. You didn't hear about it? I just launched my new Instagram, Juan Gotti Sports Network. Go ahead, go over there and give me a follow. It's free, and we cover anything DC sports related or anything sports related from all major sports, whether that's MLB, NHL, NBA, or NFL. I promise you won't regret it. We cover everything, whether you're a Knicks fan and you're a Giants fan, whether you're a Redskins fan. Although we are DC sports here as fans, we do cover every other sports league and every other sports team. So go ahead and give me a follow. I promise you won't regret it. Link in the description. So yesterday, the NFL proposed a deal to the NFLPA that allowed 0 preseason games. We know all offseason, we thought it was only going to be 1 preseason game taken away because they canceled the Canton game. And then later we found out it was 2 preseason games that were being taken away. So only week 2 and week 4 being played. Now it's 0 preseason games this upcoming year. So who is going to be affected the most by this, by having no preseason games? We'll break that down right now. So the Washington Redskins signed 4 undrafted free agents this past draft, and those 4 was Thaddeus Moss, Steven Montez, Isaiah Wright, and Jonathan Johnson. So out of those 4, and then we could throw some late round picks in there too, who will be affected the most? And what I mean by affected is it's going to take a lot for them to make the roster. Then that means they're going to have to ball out in camp in order to make the roster, even more than they did have to in previous years because it's no preseason this year. We're going to discuss that right here. In my opinion, we have Thaddeus Moss leading the way. Then we have Steven Montez, Isaiah Wright, and Jonathan Johnson. The clear, obvious person that's going to struggle to make the roster out of these 4 players is Steven Montez. He's a quarterback from Colorado. He was solid. I watched his highlights. He was solid. But considering the fact that we have a young quarterback in Dwayne Haskins who we want to build our offense around and build our future around, who's really been working this whole offseason, I don't see Steven Montez making the roster. We have Kyle Allen to back him up, who was Ron Rivera's guy, who was really solid in my opinion. I just don't think he's better than Dwayne Haskins. Dwayne Haskins clearly has more talent than him, but Kyle Allen is a good backup. So we have 2 good quarterbacks here on the roster. Yes, some people may say you need 3. So that's the only way I can see him making a roster, is if he have a decent camp. But other than that, now that the rosters are going to be trimmed down to 80 instead of, I think it was 90-man roster entering camp, it's going to be tough for a lot of people to make the roster. So Steven Montez is the first person I see having a struggle or not making the roster on the Washington Football Club this upcoming year, just because we have Dwayne Haskins and we have Kyle Allen, 2 good quarterbacks. Next person that could struggle making the roster in 2020 is not an undrafted free agent, but more so a late round draft pick, and that is James Smith-Williams. We got James Smith-Williams in the 7th round, I think, from NC State, and he's a defensive end. And the reason, do we even need to talk about defensive end? The reason why I say he's going to struggle is just because we're loaded at defensive ends. A lot of people want to talk about Chase Young and Montez Sweat and Ryan Kerrigan, but they're forgetting that we have Nate Orchard. Nate Orchard really came along at the end of the season. He got that key key stop versus the Panthers. And fun fact about that play was that he didn't even know where he was supposed to be. He didn't even know the play call, and he still came up and made a good play. So with that being said, I believe that James Smith-Williams is going to be another player that's going to struggle to make the roster, only because we are loaded at defensive end. Yes, he could possibly make a practice squad if this was a normal offseason, but since it's, like I said, no preseason games, also since it's a shorter man roster, he's going to have to really ball out and impress the coaching staff in training camp in order to make the roster in 2020. The next person that I can see struggling making this roster is wide receiver undrafted free agent Jonathan Johnson. Now you might be saying, whoa, why? We do have an injury bug at wide receiver since Kevin Harmon went down. Yes, that is true, but Jonathan Johnson, he just doesn't seem like the type of player that would fit the Redskins' new scheme. And you might be saying, wait, what is the Redskins' new scheme? We all know it's the Air Coryell. And a lot of people forgetting that we have some wide receivers that are better than the Jonathan Johnson. And also, I had to put another receiver on this list that was going to struggle to make the team, only because it's multiple receivers on this list, and another receiver that I'm talking about is going to make the roster, and I believe that he's going to really be a stud. So the reason why Jonathan Johnson won't make this roster, even after Kelvin Harmon's injury, is just because we still have a lot of receivers better than him. Terry McLaurin, obviously the solidified number 1. AGG supposed to be the number 2. Cam Sims is going to be probably, in my opinion, the number 4 receiver. Number 3 is going to be Steven Sims, obviously, and this is possibly where he could make the roster and possibly play slot, is Jonathan Johnson. But I don't see that because the other undrafted free agent that I'm going to be talking about, I can see him having a role like that, like a Steven Sims had last year or this past season. Well, don't forget, Steven Sims was also an undrafted free agent from Kansas, who we got, who really, showed what he was supposed to be getting drafted and going to make teams pay for not drafting him. So Jonathan Johnson is another guy that's really going to struggle to make the roster, in my opinion, only because we have better receivers than him, more receivers that we need. And what I mean by better is, I'm not saying as far as on-field play, but we have guys like Cam Sims, who is 6'5". We have guys like Antonio Gandy Golden, who's 6'4". We have smaller guys like Terry McLaurin, but who can play as a 6'4" frame. We have a guy like Steven Sims who can go across the middle and make the slap catches and possibly beat the defense deep too. Put him in the backfield. We got to get creative. We also forgetting about Antonio Gibson. Antonio Gibson, although he will be going down as a running back, we know he's a swift army knife, and he's going to be that Christian McCaffrey. And that is another reason why I don't see Jonathan Johnson making the roster. It's because our other undrafted free agent wide receiver, Isaiah Wright, is also a swift army knife. We know how good he is in the special teams game. We know what he can do in the slot. That guy was nasty for Temple, and it's just really crazy how we always find these great guys, and it seems like people always pass up on guys like a Steven Sims in 2019 and like Isaiah Wright in 2020, and we swoop them up. So that is another reason why I don't see Jonathan Johnson making a roster, just because we have so many versatile receivers on this roster. It is crazy. Now, the last person I possibly would put on this list is probably Kelechi Hudson. Now, I know you probably going to say, whoa, Kelechi? The reason why I say that is because I really believe Kelechi Hudson will make this roster, but the only other reason why I say he wouldn't is just because we're too loaded at linebackers. And Kelechi Hudson's going to really have to have a camp. And let me say this. Let me rephrase this before you guys go in on me in the comment section. If we were having a preseason with all 4 games, Kelechi Hudson will make the roster, no question. But since we're only having a training camp, no preseason games, and we're already loaded at the linebacker position, it's going to be really tough for Kelechi Hudson to make the roster. Now, the only way that I could possibly see him making a roster, if he doesn't show out at linebacker, which I know he will, and which I know he's capable of doing, if he doesn't show out at linebacker in training camp, we could possibly switch him back to safety, which he's really good at. He's a hybrid safety, just like Jabril Peppers coming out of Michigan, and he was coming out of Michigan too. So that is another reason why he could possibly make the roster. I'm leaning more towards him struggling making the roster, only just because we have so many linebackers. Reuben Foster, who's coming back healthy, Ryan Anderson, Ryan Kerrigan, Josh Harvey Clemens, Sean Dion Hamilton, Cole Holcomb. We have so many linebackers on this roster, and it's just crazy. So it's going to be really a struggle for one Kelechi Hudson to make the roster. The only way, like I said, I see him making this roster is if he's a safety. Now, don't get me wrong. If he does show out in training camp, I would really be happy because he's a really good talent. But considering the fact that we're going through this, it's really unfortunate for guys like him to not have a preseason and to have a shortened roster. Because if it was a 90-man roster, he would have a better chance of making the roster. Now, he still do have a chance of making the roster. This is just my opinion. Now, of course, your opinion is going to be different than mine, and I can't wait to read about it. But I just had to clear that up for you guys that were going to go ham on me in the comment section. If we were having a normal preseason and a normal offseason, Kaleki Hudson would make the roster, no question. But since we're having a different offseason with no preseason games and a shortened roster, it's going to be really tough for guys like Kaleki Hudson to make the roster, considering the fact that we have so many linebackers on this roster. With that being said, it's been boy Juan Gotti. Like, comment, subscribe, hail to the Washington Football Club. I'm out. Peace.